Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name's Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors now with their websites and local SEO. I help new chiropractors get started. I help stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today we're going to talk about what it means to potentially lose the profession as chiropractors. Sometimes you'll hear people say that. I'm going to mention 5 specific fears that I think have some validity to why chiropractors may be worried about, hey, if we go in this particular direction, that could be the end of chiropractic as we know it. And at the end, I'm going to give you my thought about what I think is a bigger problem than all of this that is contributing to the chiropractic profession not moving forward. So that's going to be the plan for today. Each of these things, I could probably talk in depth about all of them, but I'm going to serve as sort of just a 5-fear overview and some final thoughts. And just to give you guys some thoughts about what does it actually mean when someone says that we're in danger of losing the profession. Now, before I get into that, I do want to remind you that if you would like me to look at your website and SEO and give you some recommendations, absolutely free of charge with no obligation, you can request a website and SEO review at Rocket Chiro. If you want a better website or you want help getting more patients from the Google Maps, you can reach out to me through the website and ask for help in that area. Usually I talk to those clients before we go any further. I don't have just an open access for anyone to do a website and SEO with me. I want to make sure that I'm a good fit. If you want to go beyond the podcast and you're a new chiropractor or you are a chiropractor that's been out for a little while and you're feeling kind of stuck, check out my Next Step program. It's just a great way to go beyond the podcast, get some additional content, get more access to me, and be able to just lay a better foundation, kind of de-stress a little bit and get headed in the right direction for your practice. Now, I will say this, if you're a website client or your SEO client or whatever, you're also going to get access to Next Step. So that's a nice little bonus for those who are kind of looking to do multiple things. All that can be found at rocketchiro.com. I've kind of said enough about me, right? So the other day I heard somebody that was actually saying, they made this comment about losing the profession and we have to be careful as chiropractors, we're going to lose the profession. And they didn't really elaborate. I didn't watch like this whole thing. It was like a interview, and they didn't really elaborate specifically what they were talking about. But and I've seen this with other chiropractors and other people over the years where they kind of allude to this us versus them. We got to be careful. We're going to head in this direction. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. Like we got to fight for the profession, fight for the profession. When we need to fight for the profession. And I'm not saying that there aren't any fights to fight. But I think the place that we need to start before we get into these 5 different fears is we need to start at the beginning, which is when chiropractic was discovered and developed and D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer, like all of that. Chiropractors originally were being thrown in jail for practicing medicine without a license, and chiropractic wasn't a profession. It wasn't a recognized thing. And because of that, I think that the profession was sort of born into conflict. We sort of made, and I say we, like B.J. Palmer really made the medical profession the enemy right from the beginning. And there's this adversarial relationship that chiropractors have had with the medical profession, the medical establishment, and it sort of existed since we have started as chiropractors. And I think that that has spilled over a little bit into our mentality as chiropractors, where we say things like we're going to lose the profession and we're going to lose ourselves and that sort of thing. I think that's probably where some of this starts from. Now, I do think there are some legitimate fears, and I don't have these in any particular order, but the first one we're going to talk about is just losing the chiropractic identity, chiropractic's purpose. And this is something you'll hear a lot more on the vitalistic kind of subluxation-based side of things, because there are chiropractors who think that subluxation-based chiropractic is what chiropractic is. That's all that chiropractic is. And if it's anything else, it's not chiropractic. And they would genuinely have the same belief or a similar belief that BJ did with some of his early writings, where if you're doing anything else, you're not a real chiropractor. You're a mixer, you're trying to be a medical doctor, whatever. And so chiropractic should be an only subluxation-based care. And the problem with that, and here's some of my thoughts about it, we'll kind of move on to the next one. The problem with that is that right from the beginning, BJ was fighting this fight because chiropractors from the start were doing things besides just correcting subluxation. Like that's from the beginning. I mean, you could go back and read green books and BJ's complaining about what chiropractors are doing and they're not real chiropractors. Literally the same stupid discussions that are happening now about what is a real chiropractor and who is a real chiropractor and you're not doing it right. Those same things exist in print in nice green books that have been around for 100 years. And so I think for chiropractors who are subluxation based and more on the vitalistic side of things, if you're going to insist that chiropractic has to be subluxation correction and that's what it is, that's all that it is, and if you do anything else, it's not chiropractic and we shouldn't do anything else, you are fighting a foolish fight. You are fighting a stupid fight. You are fighting a fight that has been going on for a long time that you're not going to win. You just aren't. That's not what chiropractic only is. I'm not saying that's not an important part of chiropractic or its history or whatever. I'm just saying if you think that that's all that chiropractic is, and if a chiropractor decides to practice and not talk about subluxation, not talk about innate, not talk about the above, down, inside, out, and whatever, that they're not real chiropractors, I think that you're being divisive, and I think that you are dying on a hill that doesn't need to be died on. I think that we can all exist together. Like I think the subluxation-based chiropractors and evidence-based chiropractors can exist together. Now, I will say this, if you're on the evidence-based side of things and you think that chiropractors shouldn't be allowed to talk about subluxation and vitalism and stuff like that, I think you're also wrong. I think that both things can exist, and those aren't, what chiropractic is not defined by this particular philosophical bend that someone has when they're practicing chiropractic. Now, I know that everyone's going to disagree with me, but I think that this is a bit of a silly internal argument that we have and have had for a very, very, very long time that is a foolish discussion. And I think we would probably be better off if we just stopped doing it. Fear number 2 is the fear of becoming like osteopaths. Like you'll hear this a lot where, say, chiropractors, osteopaths used to adjust and then they started prescribing, and now they're pretty much just like, B-level medical doctors, and they don't really do. I think that there is some validity to that thought. If a chiropractor wants to, if the profession as a whole wanted to go down the route of doing medicine and doing surgeries, and I think those are foundational things that are, to me, foundational parts of being a chiropractor are your spine centric. And I don't say spine only because I don't think that a chiropractor has to just take care of the spine, but spine centric, like that's the foundational thing. That's the thing that makes us unique, is that we work with the spine. Your non-drugs, non-surgery, like those are, to me, foundational aspects of being a chiropractor. And if the chiropractic profession wants to start giving those things up and start adding drugs and adding surgery and really bypassing the spine-centric nature of chiropractic and start just working on other stuff and not really messing with the spine anymore as a primary, I think this is a legitimate concern. And I think that if the sect, kind of the small part of chiropractic that really wants to be a medical doctor, it's like you're a chiropractor, but you really want to be a medical doctor, I don't think that particular small version of chiropractors are helpful for the profession. I think they're probably sabotaging the profession as a whole. Like it's like, hey, if you don't want to be a chiropractor, don't be a chiropractor. If you want to be a nurse practitioner or a medical doctor, then go be a nurse practitioner or medical doctor. If you want to be an osteopath, be an osteopath. Like that's one of the things that's frustrating to me about the discussion of should chiropractors prescribe medicine? I'm like, no. Like if you want to prescribe medicine, go get a degree as a nurse practitioner or some other profession that can prescribe. Like that's what they do. That's not what we do. Fear number 3 is becoming like a PT. And this is a couple part thing. One, becoming like a PT could mean that we're just not really working on the spine and we're only doing acute care and we're working primarily with muscles and ligaments and joints. That could be what that means. It could also mean that we are integrated within the health profession and we become a gatekeeping, like the medical doctors or surgeons or whatever become the gatekeepers for chiropractic care. I would say if this would happen from an autonomy standpoint, this would be tragic. I mean, it would be absolutely tragic. And I would say it would be probably our own fault. This would also be kind of a group of chiropractors who just insist on being a part of the medical profession to the point that they give up their autonomy. Like I think that would be absolutely tragic for the profession. And I hope there's not significant movements in that direction, because that to me would be silly and ridiculous. I also think that if chiropractors as a whole, if the profession as a whole moves away from that spine-centric nature of chiropractic, and they start saying like, well, we're going to work on muscles and we're going to work on, and I'm not saying that chiropractors, their individual chiropractors can't do it, but if the profession as a whole just sort of moves away from the adjustment, and there is some of that has happened over the years. And I think that's my personal bigger concern about the profession is, like, we are supposed to be spine experts. We're supposed to be non-drug, non-surgical spine experts. Like, that's who we are as chiropractors primarily. And if you start moving away from that and you stop focusing on the adjustment, you stop focusing on the spine aspect of being a chiropractor, I do think that there are some questions of like, what are you at this point? Are you just a physical therapist that doesn't have to get a referral? Some chiropractors are. And I think if the profession as a whole went in that direction, that would be a shame, because I do think at that point you've lost your identity, which sort of kind of back to when I said like, hey, don't fight over your identity. It's like, well, I think fighting over those things that I consider core stuff, which is spine-centric, non-drugs, non-surgery, like that, I would consider that foundational. And if you walk away from that, I think you probably are just a glorified PT. Number 4 is restricted scope of practice. This one's interesting because vitalistic chiropractors tend to think that the scope of practice is too broad. The ones that argue this point, they think the scope of practice is too broad because you should just be doing like hands-only subluxation-based care. And if anything else, PT or otherwise, is too broad of a scope of practice, chiropractors shouldn't be allowed to do it. Chiropractors who are evidence-based and like to the extreme evidence-based, and they don't want to have anything to do with vitalism or anything like that, or subluxation-based care, they tend to think that the practice of chiropractic, the scope of chiropractic, is too broad from the standpoint of people are allowed to do non-musculoskeletal care. They're allowed to do subluxation or wellness-based care. So it's kind of funny that both sides would argue that the scope of practice is too broad, but they are arguing against each other with the same discussion. I don't think this is a fight that anyone should be fighting. I think where we should be planting our flag is the scope of practice should not go into drugs and surgery. Like, that's what I think. That's where I think we should be drawing the line and saying like, this is not what chiropractic is. But if somebody wants to be more subluxation based, wellness based, within reason, like, I don't think that it's okay to claim that you can cure cancer. Like, these are ridiculous things that some chiropractors do, make ridiculous statements. And I don't think you should be allowed to make ridiculous statements. So I would agree that some of the extremes where you take that idea and that philosophy and you push it out to its kind of maximum, it is sort of ridiculous. I would agree with that. But I don't think that removing non-musculoskeletal chiropractic from the table is the direction the profession should go. I don't think we're better off because we've done that, just because there are some crazies on the fringe that say dumb things. Because there's always been crazies on the fringe that say dumb things, and there's always going to be crazies on the fringe that say dumb things. And you can make a law, and the crazies on the fringe that say dumb things are still going to do that because they feel like they're, prophets or something or whatever. I don't know. There's some sort of apostle for chiropractic. So I don't think that closing down the scope of chiropractic, I don't think making chiropractic only subluxation based is smart. And I don't think making chiropractic only musculoskeletal short-term care is smart. Now, where I would be an advocate of restricting scope to a certain extent would be if you want to make it more difficult for someone to add a service or to make a claim. If you're going to say that you treat kids, where's the certification? Where's the Webster certification? Where's the ICPA certification? Like, if you're going to say you do acupuncture, where's the certification? If you're going to say you do upper cervical, where's the certification? I would be okay with raising the bar. I think that the bar for saying you do something as a chiropractor is very low. And it means that a lot of chiropractors who are really sloppy, who don't actually know what they're doing, say that they do things that they don't actually do. And so that is probably a different discussion about the sloppiness within the profession. So I would be okay with that, but that's not really limiting scope. That's just raising the bar. Some of you probably think that's limiting scope. Realistic and fair bars to be able to say that you do certain things, I think is probably smart, since we don't self-regulate very well, which is a different discussion. Fear number 5 is insurance regulation and dictation. This is probably the most legit, like real world fear that is currently going on of all of these, as far as like, can this get out of hand? The fear of insurance regulating what chiropractors can and can't do is a real thing, especially if you're involved with insurance. The fear of being forced to use insurance. There's an element of that with like Medicare and stuff like that. There's being forced to do insurance, and you can't be a cash practice with everyone or for everyone. There are directions with insurance that are not going to be good for the profession, because I would see a world where chiropractors are forced to accept insurance, and then that insurance restricts what you can do and pays you very little for the thing that they restrict you to being able to do. That is not far-fetched to me in the slightest bit. And so I am not at all against chiropractors attempting to improve reimbursement for the chiropractic profession. I don't think that long-term chiropractic care, I don't think wellness chiropractic care, and I don't think that subluxation-based chiropractic care really fits well within the insurance model. I think that the insurance model for chiropractic is going to be more acute care, short-term care, which makes sense to me. I don't know how all that works together, honestly. And my concern would be, I would never want a world to exist where a chiropractor can't be a cash practice if they want to be. I wouldn't want a world to exist. And this is true for medical doctors and dentists, whatever. I want people to be able to do their own thing their own way if they want to, and not have to, you have to accept this insurance. You only can see somebody this amount. You can only see them for these things, and we're only going to pay you this amount. That to me would be a kind of a nightmare situation for the practical aspect of being a chiropractor. And I don't think that that's far-fetched. And I think that chiropractors who are pushing and pushing and pushing and kind of insisting on that the profession gets reimbursed and gets recognized and is included in the healthcare and included with, you got to be careful. You have to be careful. I am all for better reimbursement. I am all for a simpler system and making this make sense, because here in the US, the insurance and chiropractic doesn't really make a lot of sense for most chiropractors. But be very, very careful. Whoever's doing this, whoever's steering this ship, whoever's flying this plane, be very careful what you give up if that's the route that you insist on going. Don't be foolish about it, I guess, is that very cautious. So those are 5 fears. What do I think is a bigger foundational problem? I think a bigger foundational problem for chiropractic is that we don't agree on what chiropractic is. And when you don't agree on what chiropractic is, you can't communicate it to others. You can't move forward as a profession. Because some of these things, when we say we don't agree on what chiropractic is, well, if we agreed on what chiropractic is, we don't have to worry about losing the identity and purpose of the profession. We don't have to worry about becoming osteopaths. We don't have to worry about becoming physical therapists. We don't have to worry about restricted scope of practice. And the only thing you really legitimately have to worry about is the insurance regulation and dictation. And that's just a semantic thing. Like how are we allowed to practice, and how are we going to get paid for this thing that we do, that we all agree on what it is? So 4 of these 5 things could be solved if we could just simply agree on what chiropractic is, and we don't. We just don't. And because we don't agree, we can't communicate it to others, meaning the public, the insurance companies, the people in our community, to each other, to prospective chiropractors. We can't move forward as a profession. We talk about, there's this guy on Instagram that I keep seeing is talking about like X number of chiropractors all moving in the same direction. And I don't remember what the even number is, but if we all just move, we'd be unstoppable. And it's like, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Like, you can't get 10 chiropractors in the same room together discussing what chiropractic is and what we should do with the profession without just turning into a massive argument. You think you're going to get 10,000 or 1,000 or 50,000 or 20,000 or whatever, however many chiropractors you're shooting for, you think we're all going to agree and head in one direction? We don't agree on what chiropractic is. So I personally think vitalism and pain management are both essential. I think that they have existed since the beginning of chiropractic. And I think BJ started this fight about like, what is real chiropractic? And I think it's been a dumb fight from the start. If we're non-surgery, non-drugs, spine-focused care, that's who we are. And there's other things you can do as chiropractors, but I think those are the hills we should die on. I wrote this definition. I know nobody's going to like it because everybody's going to be pissed off for whatever reason, but this is what I wrote down. Chiropractic is a drug-free, non-surgical form of care focused on evaluating and improving the function of the spine and joints. Chiropractic care is designed to restore motion, reduce discomfort, and enhance the body's natural ability to function and heal. I get it. Nobody likes that definition. For now, that's my definition of chiropractic. So I'm thinking about maybe doing a podcast here soon, and it might be my next podcast about what are the essentials of chiropractic. Like, what are the things, what are the hills that we should die on? I don't know that I'm going to do a whole podcast about it because I've kind of boiled it down in this one where it's like, I think for me personally, there's 3 hills to die on, and I've mentioned them already in this podcast. So maybe I won't do that. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. If you can share this with another chiropractor, I'd really appreciate it. If you would like help with your website, with your SEO, or you would like help getting started from the business and marketing standpoint, go to Rocket Chiro and reach out to me through there. If you've never left a review for the podcast or for Rocket Chiro, I would really appreciate that. I've seen a couple of people that have done that fairly recently, and I thank you for that. I really do genuinely appreciate it. I'm done. I'm out of here, guys. I'll talk to you on the next episode. See ya.